Hello, 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 hello. This is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to dive in to the Tesla Q2 earnings report and earnings call in depth. There is no SEC filing yet, so we can't look at that. But we're going to look at the report. We're going to look at the call transcript. Before we get there, I just want to show you this is the stock price currently, and this is year to date. So we started the year at $108 a share. We're currently at $260 a share. We're up 140%. We're still over an $800 billion market cap. Are we at our peak? Our recent peak, like 280, 290, whatever it was? No. Are we back to the all-time high of 400? No. I'm wearing the, let me switch the, I'm wearing the Tesla's the next Tesla t-shirt. It's a bumpy ride, people. It's a bumpy ride. Do not focus on the, just my opinion. By the way, the shirts are at elonbits.com, the stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com. I think I'm going to be doing hats soon. So, look, if you're focused on the short term, then this really isn't the channel for you. This is not what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about long term, what we see in the earnings report and the earnings call that matters for the long term. Before we do that, I wanted to bring one thing in. I asked my supporters on the Daily Lie to chip in with their thoughts on and comments, whatever. So Derwin over here says the photos from the shareholder deck show the Cybertruck production line is just that, a straight line. There seems to be loads of room for additional lines running parallel to it. Joe Tetmeyer is showing us on the second floor as a large second of the Gigafactory. What do you expect for eventual volume? Could it be 1 million Cybertrucks a year? Okay. So the first thing is I keep hearing people saying Tesla's going to the unbox process across all its models. The unbox process is something they talked about at Investor Day or Shareholder Day, whatever it was, where they talked about the next generation vehicle platform and how they're going to take different segments of the vehicle, and instead of having one simple line, by working on different parts of the vehicle while they're apart and then they bring them together. It does not appear that they're doing that with Cybertruck. And the fantasy that in one of the many fantasies that people have about the fantasy Project Highland is that Tesla's instituting the unbox process for Model 3 and Model Y. These are not true. These are not accurate. There's all kinds of, one of the things I'll say, because I've watched what some other people are saying about the earnings call. I've watched what some people said before the earnings call. We all have a tendency to get very excited about Tesla's prospects, and we get carried away. And it's not, I mean, not, I'm not going to get mad at anybody for getting carried away, but I think for those of us who are in this position where we have an audience who follows us, it would be better if we didn't get carried away too much. And I've made that mistake in the past. So I heard people saying there were 100 bots working on the factory floor in Giga, Texas, doing meaningful work. And no, Elon said there's 5, maybe 10 bots. I think all the bots are actually in Palo Alto, California. I don't think they're in Texas. I could be wrong about that part, but the autopilot team is in Palo Alto, California. So I believe the bots are in California. I don't believe that they're in Texas. I don't think they're working in a factory. And you're going to see in this video that I got something wrong, and I'm going to acknowledge I got something wrong. Particularly what energy storage deployed and energy revenue did not follow what I projected. And I think it's important when you say something's going on that you acknowledge that you got it wrong and you accept and try to figure out, well, why did I get this wrong? And one of the fundamental things that we get wrong, not all influencers, I think Rob Maurer in particular is very calm and methodical. We tend to get too excited, and we tend to, and I can see how I did this with the storage deployed and the energy revenue. Still not sure about the energy revenue, the storage deployed. So I think we need to, rather than say, okay, well, I got that wrong, but what they really meant was this, and I was really right. That's not the correct response. And I watched some other influencers, so-called experts talking about things, and rather than say, oh, I guess I got that wrong, I should really rethink the way I've been thinking about this. Like, well, what he really meant was this. He said this. If you read between the lines of what he said, he really meant that I was right in the first place. No. If you got it wrong, you got it wrong. Own up to it. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the influencer community are not, in my opinion, doing right in that sense. So anyway, so getting back to Derwin's question, though. The photos from the shareholder deck show so. Yeah, number one, there's no unbox process going on. What do I expect for eventual volume? Do I think there'll be additional lines running there? Possibly. Eventual volume. Tesla has told us 250 to 500,000 units a year of Cybertruck. RP says Warren wrong about everything as usual. I'm not wrong about everything. I'm wrong about some things. So, what do I expect for eventual volume for Cybertruck? I think 250 to 500,000 is. I don't think they've told us 250 to 500,000. I think if you look at the top selling pickup truck in America, it's in the ballpark of a million a year. And given that Model Y has become the best selling vehicle, it's reasonable to anticipate that Cybertruck could become the best selling pickup truck. If it becomes the best selling pickup truck, I think we're looking at a million a year. I don't think they have the capacity to do that in Texas. I do think that they might build Cybertruck in another location, but this is speculation on my part. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't make gross margin predictions. I didn't make earnings per share predictions. I don't like that short term stuff. I'm looking long term, looking for things that are indicative of progress for the long term. Okay. Stephen Gillis asks or says, do I think there's a chance of ICE robotaxis from Tesla's partnered OEM, or will Tesla require the partnered OEM to supply licensed FSD to electric vehicles only? This is a great question. Thank you, Stephen. Here's the reality, the cold hard reality of the future of vehicles. We can't make enough electric vehicles to replace all the internal combustion engine vehicles. The global demand for vehicles is in the ballpark of 75 to 90 million vehicles a year. Tesla is hoping to get to 20 million vehicles by 2030. One of the goals is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, but a secondary goal is let's make the roads safer. I think we can all agree we would rather have safer roads. We'd rather have fewer people die. If you were Tesla and it's 2024 and you have the chance and you've got FSD working and you have the chance to supply FSD to other automakers who are still making internal combustion engine vehicles, and that prevents accidents and saves lives, then yeah, you do it. That's the way I see it. I don't think it would make sense to say no, we don't want our safety. We don't want to make your cars safer too. That's just not. And practical reality, I think Tesla is going to make a lot of money off licensing FSD. They probably would supply the equipment and training at cost to the other OEM, and then make revenue from people buying FSD. In other words, they supply all the hardware to, let's say it's Ford, and then somebody buys a Ford F-150 pickup truck, and they include FSD on the hardware is built into the truck. Tesla's collecting data from every vehicle that's carrying the equipment, so Tesla's already getting a benefit just from that, and that data helps them improve FSD. And then the customer decides he wants to pay for FSD. The equipment's in the car, he wants to pay for FSD. Now, Tesla's getting, let's say, $15,000 for that. You do that over 70 million vehicles, you're basically talking about $1 trillion a year in revenue. So EVs are still going to drive the transition to sustainable energy. EVs are still going to be better than gas cars, but you can make gas cars safer. You should make gas cars safer. That's my take, but who knows what? I can't say how Elon's really going to view this. And then the last one was Cybertruck, the first Tesla with drive-by-wire. Will it make it to SX and bring? Oh, so I don't think that Cybertruck is drive-by-wire. I'd love to see that. I don't think that's one of the innovations they're focusing on. Yeah, I don't see that. And will they bring it? I think drive-by-wire is coming at some point, but I don't think we're there yet. They didn't say they were doing it for the next generation vehicle platform. They've never said they're doing it for Cybertruck. There may be reasons why they're not doing it. So Mark Plot says, why do tooling at Texas and not produce the Cybertruck? Mark Plot is one of our moderators in the chat. They're doing so that we're going to get to that. I think I know what you're talking about, Mark, and hopefully I'll see it in the chat again. We're going to get to that when we go through the document. So let me hold off on that and address that when we get to the document. So let me turn this part off, and I'm going to turn that off, and let's dive into here. Where did I go? All right, there I am. Okay, so this is the shareholder document. This is the earnings report, and I want to go through. Start with this page. Let me bring up my red arrow again. Okay, this is stuff I don't typically care about. This is all short-term stuff. Operating margin, net income. It helps. It matters for Wall Street in the short term. Doesn't really matter to me. Operating cash flow, free cash flow. They had positive free cash flow. That's a good thing long term. That means we're doing better. $700 million increase in our cash and investments. Good. Cybertruck factory tooling on track, producing RC4 builds, release candidate builds, and I think there's a footnote there that says release candidate builds equals RC builds equals release candidate builds. Just what I was saying. Down here, RC builds is release candidate builds, and I'm blocking this. Let me move this over. Rid of this. Okay, so record quarter on many levels with our best ever production and deliveries and revenue approaching $25 billion in a single quarter. So that means they're heading towards $100 billion in revenue a year. And of course, they're going to go beyond that. Excited to be able to achieve such results given the macroeconomic environment. With high interest rates, it's very hard for Tesla to succeed. The demand for their products is affected by the interest rates, which raised car payments and probably raised the cost of buying megapacks. And they've said solar as well. Operating margin remained healthy at approximately 10%, even with price reductions. Reflects our ongoing cost reduction efforts and continuing production ramp success in Berlin and Texas, and the strong performance of our energy and services and other businesses. So Berlin and Texas are getting their ramps going, which means they're getting their cost per unit down, which means they're reducing the cost of goods sold, which improves margins on those vehicles. Strong performance of energy and services and other businesses. That's pretty much Megapack, to some extent Powerwall and solar, supercharger, and I'm not sure what other services. Maybe that's fixing vehicles. So our commitment to being at the forefront of AI development and our new chapter with the start of production of Dojo training supercomputers. So they had said previously that they were going to start production of Dojo supercomputers in July. Now this was about a week ago, 9 days ago. Or what date this was. This was like Wednesday, wasn't it? Oh, it was 19th, so it was 4 days ago. So here they said entered a new chapter with the start. So they have started production of Dojo training supercomputers. We are hopeful that our immense neural net trainings we satisfy with our in-house designed Dojo hardware. The better the neural net training capacity, the greater the opportunity for our autopilot team to iterate on new solutions. I think it was in the earnings call, it may have been somewhere else, that Elon said that they're still using NVIDIA GPUs. They're still using NVIDIA's based supercomputers. Do everything that they're doing. How are we doing here? K1017 says, will we see the stock under 200 again? There's a really strong chance the stock will drop to 200, 150, even 100. Depends on macro circumstances and all kinds of other things. So getting back to this. Sorry. In conclusion, focus on cost reduction, new product development that enable future growth, investments in R&D, better vehicle financing options. So that's sort of like a summary, and a very positive summary of where they think they are. Now let's dive into this financial summary. We're going to see a couple of key details here. I need to bring this back. I'm going to make me smaller. Yeah. Okay. I don't care about that part. So total auto revenue was $21 billion, not a record. Q4 was higher. Energy generation and storage revenue, not a record. Q1 was higher. Services and other revenue, I think that's a record. That's like supercharging, and more. Total revenue, $24.9 billion. That appears to be a record. So they had the highest revenue ever. Total gross profit, $4.5 billion, not higher than Q3 and Q4 of last year. GAAP gross margin about 18.2%. Then I'm not going to worry about the operating stuff. Tesla does really well on managing their operating expenses and their income for operations. So that I don't think that one. That's more to me of a. It's good long term that they're managing that well. It's not really important right now when you're thinking about what I think matters most for the long term future of the company. EBITDA I'm not going to focus on. Net income I'm not going to focus on. You can see here the 91 cents is the earnings per share that Wall Street tends to focus on, and that beat by 11 cents compared to Wall Street estimates. So that was good. That should have led the stock to, normally when a company beats estimates, the stock goes up. Of course, this is Tesla. It's bizarro world, and the stock goes down. Net cash $3 billion. So cash pile's growing, not as much as Q3 and Q4, but more cash coming in. CapEx is growing. They're investing more money on building factories and other ways. Free cash flow was $1 billion, and they're up to $23 billion in the cash. So they got a pile of cash. Tesla has a lot of freedom to be able to do things. But again, this is sort of short-term stuff. The CapEx is important. Let me just focus on that for a second. The CapEx here, this line, capital expenditures, this is investing in growing the company. You invest in capital, you're investing in your ability, you're improving productivity. You're making it possible to produce more. And Tesla continues to grow CapEx, which means they continue to grow productivity, which means they're a company that's looking towards the future. And that matters a lot. If you are a long-term investor, that matters a lot. A financial summary. I'm really more excited about the next page, but I just want to go through this page by page so we cover it. So you get these specifics about what happened with revenue for the quarter. Again, I don't tend to focus on. This is all stuff we've kind of talked about. These are some reasons why revenue was up, or some positive influences on revenue, negative influences on revenue. To me, this is just, I'm really focused on the long term, so that's just not as important to me. Other than, they got the big cash pile, which helps for investing for the future. So now we get into what I think, this is short term, but it's important. Drink me again. No. Okay. So one of the things I want to notice here, Model S and X production has been flat at around 20,000 units a quarter. Previously, which is 80,000 a year. Previously, I think Tesla's record year for S and X was around 100,000 units. So to me, I think Model S and X have flatlined. I'm not seeing a lot of promise for the future on the current platform. I think X at least needs a total re-engineering in order to enable growth. And if they were able to make a Model X that was like a Model Y but bigger and had a legitimate third row and maybe a little bit wider, make more space and a bigger battery pack so that you could get maybe 350, 360 miles range instead of 330 miles of range. If you did that, I think, and you sold that vehicle for $79,000 with a $7,500 tax credit, bringing it down to just the low 70s, I think they 5x the volume of Model X sales. I don't know if they need to do anything with Model S. I think Model S is the lowest volume vehicle in the fleet. Sedan demand is just not that high. I don't know if it makes sense to reinvest in the sedan platform. Model S Plaid is still the fastest, or arguably the fastest car on the planet. So I think you could leave Model S as it is and redesign how you make Model X and aim for 250,000 units a year of Model X. And that would be something special. So that's just a thought. Model 3 and Y production was a record. A substantial gain. It's basically a huge rate of growth quarter on quarter. Spectacular growth year on year, nearly 100%. Total production 480,000, again a record by about 40,000 units. So Tesla's growing. This is, you want to see a growth company grow, and we're seeing a growth company grow. Delivery numbers less important. Global vehicle inventory is up to 16 days of supply. Now, they said in the earnings call, maybe they said it in the document as well, that they are going to be doing some shutdowns of factories over the course of Q3 that will reduce production, and they don't expect production to grow in Q3 versus Q2. Maybe they expect it to shrink a little bit. They're not sure. They're going to try to minimize everything, get it working, but so don't expect this production number to grow in Q3. It may fall in Q3. But the point is, when you're investing capital and you're redesigning your lines, the point is to be able to scale that growth in the future. So you sacrifice a little today for a lot more tomorrow. That's the vision, as I see it. Solar deployed, still not growing. It's actually down 38% year on year. They blamed that on high interest rates. Storage deployed flat compared to the previous quarter, but much higher than a year ago. But still over 200% growth year on year. This is one I got wrong. I thought this number would go up. They mentioned that Megapack sales are volatile on a quarterly basis because it just depends on when the projects that they're supplying them to, how they're timed. So and just to be clear, like, I see this number here, and at $500 a kilowatt hour or $500 million a gigawatt hour, I expected that Tesla was going to significantly increase its revenue for energy, which I think we got to go back to the previous page to show you that. I think I missed that when we were looking at it. This is one of my misses. So energy, energy generation and storage revenue is 1.5 billion. If you do $500 million times 3.9 billion, 3.9 gigawatt hours, this number should be, and that's the previous quarter, right? That's in Q1 they delivered that many. Where'd the revenue go? There should be $2 billion in revenue from all those mega packs, not counting solar, not counting Powerwall, or I guess that is counting Powerwall, but not counting solar and maybe whatever other energy revenue you might have. This number really should be closer to 2 billion. So what's happening? It appears there's a long lag in, and I got it wrong. I can't say for sure why I got the energy revenue wrong. I think the lag is just bigger than I expected. The storage deployed, I think when you see a big jump like this, my reaction is, okay, it's growing faster now. They're going further up that curve, so it's going to accelerate. And no, this was an anomalous jump. And we went back to a relatively normal growth curve. But there's a decent chance that this will grow next quarter. And they did say somewhere in the report that Megapack production actually grew. This is deployed, which means when it's put out in the field. Tesla locations continues to grow. Service fleet continues to grow. Supercharger connectors hit 48,000. I think they may have gone over 5. I don't remember if they went over 50,000 already. There's over 5,000 supercharger stations. They went over 5,000 supercharger stations. They're approaching 50,000 supercharger connectors. And that's pretty substantial growth compared to the previous year. So Tesla's really doing well in that count. And that's really important for the long term. Okay, my favorite chart. Just go back and check to see. Jeff Harrison says they need to do cost cutting on the S and X design. Yeah, on the X design. Yeah, I think if they eliminate the Falcon Wing doors and eliminate some other luxury features, make it a little smaller, make the battery pack 92 kilowatt hours instead of 100 kilowatt hours, I think you could, and there's probably a couple other things you could do. I think they could get there. And make the front and rear casting structural pack. Mitchell says no point in putting effort into Model S and X. Better to use those engineering resources on new, lower cost mass market designs. I tend to agree with that, Mitchell. I tend to say that I think if you could jump Model X from 50,000 units a year to 250,000 units a year, considering the profit margin from that and the value that we are going to need vehicles in that segment, I do think that would be worth it. Some other people have said maybe they'll do a Cybervan, an SUV based on the Cybertruck or something like that. So, what do I think of Jim Chanos? I don't think of Jim Chanos. He doesn't enter my mind. Okay. So, coming back to the chart, the chart on the upper right corner. Let me show this to you. This chart, installed annual vehicle capacity, I think is general. Let me move myself out of the way here. Okay, so this chart, I think this is every quarter. This is the thing I watch for. That's much more indicative of what's happening in the next few quarters to the next couple of years, rather than focusing on what's happening this quarter and next quarter. So, really not changed. California Model S and X capacity 100,000, Model 3Y capacity 550,000. When they did the refresh for Model S and X, we were told that capacity was going to be maybe they may sell 120,000 or more units a year, and they haven't gotten past 80,000, and they haven't even claimed capacity for more than 100,000. So I think S and X are underperforming, and that pretty much just relates to the fact that the economy stinks, and maybe they're just not as desirable as we think. It's surprising to me that Model X outsells by Model S by so much, but it's just SUVs are much more popular. So then Shanghai Model 3 and Model Y, I think this didn't change, but we also have heard that they produced 250,000 units in the quarter, so that means they're really closer to 1 million production capacity in Shanghai, which does not surprise anybody. Berlin, this number increased from, I think, 350,000 to 375,000. And interestingly, this one doesn't have a greater than sign. It just says 375,000. A little puzzling how they choose to write these up. I'm not sure. Model Y in Texas stayed at greater than 250,000. Seems likely that Model Y in Texas will reach 350,000 or more this quarter. And then Cybertruck in tooling. This was a little bit uncertain what was going to happen. Tesla had said that they had produced their first vehicle. So the inclination was, aha, they're in production. No, they're not. That was a release candidate. I don't fully understand the auto industry to be able to say what that means, but I think it means we're not really in production yet. So they're in tooling. They're working on getting things going. Don't expect a whole bunch of Cybertrucks pouring out of the factory just yet. Tesla Semi's in pilot production. The story behind Tesla Semi is they've announced they're building a new factory or an expansion of existing factory in Nevada. They haven't built it yet. That's where the Semi is going to be built. So they're currently building a much lower volume in another location in Nevada to get their experience up, learn more about how to produce that vehicle so that when they get to the point of manufacturing it at scale, they'll be better at it. Now, this is probably the biggest line. Various next-gen platform in development. The previous quarter, there was a line that said, I think it was Roadster and Robotaxi and other, or Roadster was one line, Robotaxi was another. There was this TBD, which is location to be determined. And it would say in development, it said Robotaxi and others in one line and Roadster here. Now they've changed Robotaxi and others to next-gen platform, still in development, and they've said various locations. So here's what we know. We know that they've announced they're going to build in Mexico. I'm going to say we know, or at least we have very reliable evidence. I have heard from a very reliable source that they're going to be building the next generation vehicle platform in Texas. Then we know that Berlin has apparently filed to expand and add capacity for another 500,000 vehicles. Very likely that's the next gen platform. Seems unlikely they're going to make Model 3 in Europe. Seems unlikely they're going to expand Model Y capacity in Europe. So next generation platform in Berlin makes a lot of sense. And you pretty much wouldn't leave out Shanghai. China's the largest car market in the world. So I think what this various means, they didn't give locations. We know Mexico's one of them. It's surprising they didn't put Mexico down. So they just put various. I think it's obvious that it's those four. There's some indications that there's going to be a factory in India. Really no indication there's going to be one in Japan, but there should be. You guys know I'm a Giga Osaka nut. And then Roadsters to be developed, to be determined, still in development. Who knows when Roadster's coming? I think Elon said next year, but I'm not buying it. I'm not confident of that. And there was some more details here. Let me read these details. Looking at this side over here. In Q2, we produced a record number of vehicles thanks to ongoing ramps of our new factories. Vehicles in transit, test drive, and display vehicles account for a substantive majority of our total days of supply. So when you see that Tesla's inventory is high, it's like 16 units, and it's the highest you've ever seen it, recognize that more than 8 of those days are vehicles that are in transit, being available for test drive, or display vehicles. So the number of vehicles that are waiting around to be sold is actually not that high compared to Tesla's volume. Moon says 4 factories producing Gen 3 in parallel. I think the issue is building 4 factories in parallel that are going to produce Gen 3. Robert Hirsch asks, does Tesla use Blade batteries in anything? There have been reports that Tesla's using Blade batteries in some of its vehicles, but I haven't seen any confirmation of that yet. R says, can we still believe Model 3 and Y can beat BYD, Neoli, Auto new models? Although they just delivered longer battery range, fancy interior, comfort suspension, no software advantage. There's a massive software advantage, and there's a massive quality advantage. And if you don't see it, I can't help you with that. Comfort suspension. All right. So getting back to this document, looking at the U.S. first. Got the U.S., California, Nevada, and Texas. Giga Texas, in addition to the continued success of Model Y ramp, working on equipment installation for Cybertruck production, which remains on track for initial deliveries this year. Now, they didn't say Q3. They had previously indicated that they expected deliveries in Q3. Now it looks like it's Q4. The fact that I'm reading into this They don't think they're going to get there in Q3. They think they're going to get there by the end of Q4, and that could get pushed back to next year as well. We have made notable progress. This is important as well. We have made notable progress on yield improvement of our 4680 cell production lines. We continue building capacity for cathode production and lithium refining in the U.S. Now, I just want to focus on that. They talked about this in the call, which we're going to come to. Notable progress on yield improvement. So what happens is Tesla makes a battery maker makes a whole bunch of cells. If 80% of them are in good shape and 20% of them aren't good enough, then they have an 80% yield. So the goal is to increase yield to 80%, to 90%, to 95%, to 98%. So they're making progress on yield. They haven't said exactly what that means. They haven't given us numbers, but they're making progress on that. And building capacity for cathode production and lithium refining. And it appears in the earnings call, it came up, Drew Baglino, we're going to cover this, but he said that they've got a Cybertruck version of the cell that's 10% more energy dense, and that's without silicon and a couple of other things like the cathode, modified cathode that they're producing themselves, that those things are going to increase energy density even further. So there's a lot of potential for that. Regarding Shanghai, since our Shanghai factory has been successfully running near full capacity, we do not expect a meaningful increase in weekly production run rate. Giga Shanghai remains our main export hub. And then for Europe, our factory in Germany produced standard range Model Y vehicles in Q2 for the first time, building off momentum from its success in Q1. Model Y was the best-selling vehicle of any kind. So that I think this point is that they're now producing multiple kinds of vehicles in Berlin. That may be where the Blade batteries are going. I don't know. Model Y was the best-selling vehicle of any kind in Europe year to date based on latest available data of May. I believe that Model Y is now the best-selling vehicle in the world, but I could be wrong about that. And I don't tend to focus on this chart here. I don't know. I don't think that matters as much. Core technology, we get into some more good stuff here. Core tech. So got AI software and hardware. The cumulative miles driven with FSD beta, you can see how it's spiked up. I think this is because they enabled FSD beta for highway driving. And a lot of people's driving is on highway, and that wasn't counted as FSD beta before, and now it does. So they went from less than 150 million miles to more than 300 million miles. And they're expecting that to grow. I'm not sure how it grows that much faster than that, but they're expecting it to grow fast. Tesla Mogadishu. I don't think Tesla's going to build a factory in Mogadishu. No. That seems unlikely. Vehicle and other software. Some updates on the software. Again, I don't think this is long-term stuff. This is just general improvement. Battery powertrain and manufacturing. This was kind of exciting. Battery powertrain and manufacturing. We're looking over here. Now testing Cybertruck vehicles around the world for final certification validation. This might be the most unique vehicle product in decades. With that comes trialing and testing new technologies. As far as we know, Cybertruck will be the first sub-19-foot truck fitting into a garage that has both 4 doors and a 6+ foot bed. Both technologically and architecturally, this vehicle will break a lot of boundaries, very much in line with how we think about vehicle engineering and manufacturing. So, a couple things here. Somebody criticized them saying the Toyota Tacoma is under 19 feet, has 4 doors, and a 6+ foot bed. The Toyota Tacoma they were talking about is a smaller pickup than the typical F-150 size pickup. It's not really a full-size pickup. The cabin inside those 4 doors is smaller than what you're going to see in a Cybertruck. It is a cool truck for if you're in the gas world, but it's not as big as the Toyota Tundra. So it's a little misleading to make that criticism. And then on the right side here, you've got the Dojo expansion. Currently, they're around 5 exaflops. They're expecting to go to 100 exaflops by late next year. So that's a pretty big jump. That's a 20x improvement in computing power. And Elon has said, they love NVIDIA GPU clusters, but NVIDIA cannot supply them with as many chips as they need. Not that they're upset with NVIDIA, they're going to continue buying from NVIDIA, but NVIDIA just can't supply them everything they need. Okay. Um, energy storage energy storage deployments increased 222% year on year in Q2 to 3.7 gigawatt hours. Another strong quarter due to the ongoing ramp. The ramp has been successful with still more room to reach capacity. While energy storage deployment can be volatile due to project timing, production rate improved further sequentially in Q2. So they continue to produce more megapacks. They just didn't sell as many as I thought, or they didn't deploy as many as I thought they would. And that's something, again, that's the one of the things I got wrong. Solar deployments remain roughly flat, declining year on year, predominantly due to high interest rate environment that's causing postponement of solar purchasing industry wide. People aren't buying solar, not just from Tesla, but from anybody because of the high interest rates. Second quarter has been the quarter of supercharging. This is just talking about how other car companies have decided to start using Tesla's supercharger network, which is going to take a while to filter through. Outlook. Planning to grow production as much as possible in line with 50% CAGR, cumulative average growth. I think some years we may grow faster and some we may go slower. It looks like this year is going to stay below 50%, even though they expect to remain ahead of the long-term CAGR with around 1.8 million vehicles this year. If you go back to 2020 when they did 500,000 vehicles, getting to 1.8 million is probably more than a 50% rate from that year, because the jump from 500,000 to the next year was 936,000. That was the big jump. That was like a more than 80% jump. So you can be at 40% for a few years after an 80% jump, and you're still average growing faster than 50%. Good cash balance. Over time, we expect our hardware profits to be accompanied by an acceleration of AI software and fleet-based profits. This stirred up a hornet's nest of people saying, what do you mean by fleet-based profits? We don't have a clear answer. Most of us, I think this is related to licensing FSD or having robotaxi. Martin Vieca had an answer to the question, but it wasn't really that clear. Okay. And then product, Cybertruck's on track to begin production, and they're making progress on the next generation platform. Notice they didn't mention the Roadster. They didn't mention the Roadster because the Roadster is not that important to the future of the company. Mark Potashnik says, Warren's going to do this show at 2 a.m. in Japan, LOL. No, I do. And for those who don't know that, I'm moving to Japan in about a month. A little more than a month. No, it's like I leave it in just about a month. And once I'm in Japan, I'll be doing live streams, but I will probably do them at a different time. I probably won't do them at 1 p.m. Eastern. My guess is I'll do them closer to like, I don't know, 10 a.m. Eastern. I think that'll make more sense. 10 a.m. Eastern would be 11 p.m. in Japan. I think that's the rough idea. So PYG KLB says Roadster is really a vanity project. Now, I think the thing with Roadster is that there's so many people inside Tesla who ordered Roadsters who want their toy. You know, board members and high-level executives who probably all want the Roadster, that they're going to make it anyway. Mark Potashnik says Starlink launch in 5 hours. I will probably be watching that. I was actually on the road driving north towards Cape Canaveral when the launch was supposed to hit, and then they postponed it. Okay. Moving on. Photos, charts. I'm not going to dwell on these too much. Okay, Cybertruck looks cool. Cybertruck line looks cool. Somebody said they saw a lot of space there. I don't think there's a lot of extra space here, because I've been where the Model Y factory lines are, and that empty space is needed for things. You can't just slap another line everywhere. Another shot of the production line. You can see, I believe these are this is the front and rear, but maybe these are the pass-throughs. This would be the bed. This would be pass-throughs from the cabin into the bed. I'm just guessing here. Okay, let's see. This is the first truck they produced, but this was a release candidate. This was not a final, production unit. But the workers have their hands this sort of shape, which I guess is supposed to be the wedge shape of the triangle shape of the Cybertruck. I'll skip over this stuff. Financial statements. I don't think there was anything I really wanted to dive into in the financial statements. Balance sheet. So I think we're going to move on. Okay. Move on to, we're going to be talking about the transcript of the earnings call, but let me just see what the comments are here. Now that Twitter overhang is done, Barry Glack blaming Jack Price. So yeah, it's obviously going to be the XAI overhang. It's, who knows? Barry will always find something to complain about. Yes, I want to see Roadster on the Nürburgring. I want to see Roadster on the Nürburgring without a human driver. I want to see Tesla Plaid and Roadster doing Nürburgring on FSD at high velocity. Thank you, Mark Potashnik. Please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. I'm wearing the Tesla is the next Tesla t-shirt. This used to be one of the most popular shirts. The Tesla Man shirt is now the most popular. Some people think the arrow's pointing to something it's not pointing to. A lot of dirty minds out there. This one is not intended to be a dirty mind shirt. This is intended to be a stock shirt. And some people interpret. I have some shirts that do suggest a dirty mind, but this one is not intended for that. And the stainless steel water bottle. It's a good time to take a drink, actually. Oh, Robert, we're not going to get into gender issues with Optimus on the YouTube channel. I'm not doing. Normally, I do a live stream on the Daily Lie. After this, I'm expecting this particular live stream to go longer. I usually wrap up at 2 o'clock here on YouTube and then go over to the Daily Lie, warrenredlich.locals.com. But I'm expecting this to go much longer than 2 o'clock, and I just don't think I'm going to have the energy to keep going. So, Jeffrey Hoffman says, do you think they will still sell around 1.8 million cars this year? I think they're probably going to fall a little short of 1.8 million. It's hard to predict that. It really depends. Again, that's kind of short-term thinking, and I don't like to think short-term. If the macroeconomic situation improves, if interest rates come down, there's a lot of good things that could happen. How will Gordo spin the early licensing talk info? Yeah, I don't worry about Gordon Johnson. I like laughing at him. Okay, so let's move to the earnings document. Let me see. Find that. Okay. Can I move that? All right. So this is the transcript of the earnings call. So we have boilerplate from Martin Viecha. Martin Viecha given the boilerplate. Love Martin, but this is just boilerplate. We'll move on. Elon speaks. So let's dive into what Elon has to say. Record vehicle. Oh my God. What's going on? Record vehicle. All right, this website is not fun. Wonder if I can. All right, this is going to be messy, but I think it's this top stock picks thing that's popping up here that can't fix that. I don't know. All right, record vehicle production. Go down here. Record vehicle production and deliveries and record revenue about 25 billion in a quarter. Model Y became the best-selling vehicle of any kind globally in Q1, surpassing the likes of Corolla and Golf. Okay, that's good. That's a good sign. It's a busted growth story. We all know it's a busted growth story. Number one vehicle of any kind, including vehicles selling at far lower prices. Incredible achievement by the Tesla team. We can all agree on that. In spite of high interest rates, macro uncertainty, we continue to target 1.8 million deliveries this year. So they're targeting 1.8 million deliveries, not 1.8 million production. We expect that Q3 production will be a little bit down because we've got some shutdowns for a lot of factory upgrades. So probably just a slight decrease in production for Q3 for sort of global factory upgrades. So talking about things I might be wrong about. This is why I'm not wrong about this one yet. But they're making some shutdowns. They're doing some factory upgrades. The Project Highland Fantasy team insists that this is anything that happens is evidence of Project Highland, and there can be no evidence that disputes Project Highland. Project Highland is the unfalsifiable religion of the Highland cult. So, but it's certainly possible that I'm wrong about Project Highland, and this could be a sign of Project Highland. But when he says global factory upgrades, they don't make Model 3 in Berlin or in Texas. So if they're doing factory upgrades in Berlin and Texas, that's not Project Highland. I don't know. But, they're shutting down the factories. They're investing some money and improving the lines, improving upgrading the factories, and that will allow them to be more productive at lower cost in the future. That's the idea. In the long term, autonomy we think is going to just drive volume through the ceiling next level, and our future robotaxi products, dedicated robotaxi products, we think will have quasi-infinite demand. Way we're going to manufacture the robotaxis also revolution. Now notice he didn't say, because for all the people who are saying, oh, they're going to use Unbox process for everything else. No, they're going to manufacture the next generation vehicle of the robotaxi that way. They're not manufacturing other vehicles that way, at least not yet. It'll be by far the highest units per hour of any vehicle production ever. Okay, that's going to be interesting to see. Okay. Respect to autopilot and dojo. In order to build autonomy, you need neural net data. So there are times where we see in a neural net, basically it's 1 million training examples. It barely works at 2 million. It's slightly worse at 3 million. But we're seeing something. Then you get to 10 million training examples and it just becomes incredible. So the more data they can feed the machine, the quicker it'll learn. No substitute for massive amount of data. Tesla has more vehicles on the road. So and commenting on he doesn't see how anyone could do what they're doing. So one of the things out here is like if you're a long-term Tesla investor, one of the things that I operate on is I think Tesla is going to solve FSD before anybody else, autonomy. It's possible somebody else has a better solution out there, but I haven't seen it, and they look and they say they haven't seen it. So, and they have a long lead. It looks like Dojo training supercomputer designed to reduce cost of neural net training, optimized for the training they need. The need for neural net training, talking about quasi different things, is just enormous. So having us use both NVIDIA and Dojo is clearly needed. We just see a demand for really vast training resources. We think maybe reach in-house neural net training capability of 100 exaflops by the end of next year. Over 300 million miles have been driven using FSD beta. And that 300 million miles is going to seem very small very quickly. Now, it's an interesting projection. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. Are they increasing the number of FSD beta vehicles on the road? I don't think they're increasing them that much. Are people using it more? I don't know. Is it that they expect a radical change in the quality of the software so that people want to use it more? Maybe. They certainly said some things that suggest they believe that. Soon it will be billions of miles and tens of billions of miles, and FSD will go from being as good as human to then being vastly better than a human. Clear path to full self-driving, 10 times safer than the average human driver. Talked about Optimus. Continue to build release candidates of Cybertruck on the final production line. I don't think there's anything new in here. Feels bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside. Really cared about the exterior dimensions. Global supercharging. I see this is really, I wanted to get into the questions. I just want to go through this, make sure I don't miss something. Let me just quick check and see whether anybody has anything to say. Did I see the article where Cybertruck was being tested for crashworthiness in Europe as well? I did not see that, and I don't think that's true. Why would they crash test Cybertruck in Europe? I think the FSD transfer offer secretly has anything to do with hardware 3 not being fully capable level 5. No. I think that they are just trying to sell cars. They got more inventory than they want. They're trying to sell cars. How many they're delivering each day at each showroom, I have no idea. Thomas says, my favorite video is your Elon Musk on Tesla stock to 2030, $200,000 per share. Just to be clear, I think that's pre-split. Did you make an updated post-split hyper video with a PE of 80 video or a high growth PE of 200? I don't expect when Tesla gets to that point that the PE ratio will be that high. I've made a lot of videos about that topic, and it's really easy to just divide my number by 3. I don't really get excited about making. This is one of those challenges. Let me just talk about this. I talked earlier in the video about the challenge of being a content creator, YouTube influencer, whatever, making videos about Tesla, talking about Tesla. And there's this tendency to want to say more. There's this tendency to want to like maximize revenue as a YouTuber, get more people watching the videos, get more clicks, make more money. I'm really happy when you guys watch my videos and when you click on ads or whatever and you click on other things and I make more money, but it doesn't drive me. I want to talk about the stuff I want to talk about. And I feel like that I'm sure in the future I'll make videos about this is where I think Tesla's going in 7 years, and I still make videos about that. But it doesn't reach out and grab me. I mean, the real thing that reaches out and grabs me is what are they doing that expands the company and expands the ability to what accelerates the transition to sustainable energy, what grows company. And I do care that they make money, but that's not what I get excited about. I mean, I get excited about that, but I really, it's about the engineering, it's about the innovation that makes a big difference and how it's going to change the world. Jambias says Elon should take a vacation. Elon doesn't like vacations. Semi-production is slow because of batteries. I don't think semi-production is slow because of batteries. I think semi-production is slow because they're waiting for the next factory to be ready. ATGUL says factory upgrades may be prepping for 48 volts. I don't think that's it. I think that the Cybertruck will have 48 volts and the next generation vehicle will have 48 volts. I don't think they're going to back 48 volts into Model 3, Y, S, and X yet. I think they will redesign those vehicles and do 48 volt when they redesign them. Ken says FSD will span many industries. Brian Wong discussed this with Randy. That's probably accurate. What will the FSD kit cost and what will it include? I think it's in the ballpark of $1,000. I don't know for sure, but I think it's in the ballpark of $1,000. Will the Cybertruck show streaks and fingerprints like my stainless fringe? I don't know and I don't care. How long does it take you to make a typical video? It shouldn't take that much editing because you don't do visual jokes like the Now You Know channel. Good question, Jim. First of all, I don't have a typical video. It depends on the length of the video. If I make a 3-minute video, it's a lot quicker than if I make a 30-minute video. I don't really feel like I have a typical video anymore, but I would say, let's say if I make a 30-minute video, it probably takes 10 hours. There's a lot of editing you don't see. There's a lot of recording. There's a lot of planning ahead. A lot of. And do I count the research I was doing anyway that motivated the video? I don't even know how to count it. Okay, so let me go back to not that. No, no, no. What happened? Oh, it's not that. I'm sorry. I get distracted easily. I lose track of things. No, one of those days. Didn't sleep well last night. Elon talking about licensing FSD to others. Oh, we are already in discussions, early discussions with a major OEM about using Tesla FSD. Not trying to keep this to ourselves. More than happy to license it to others. That's a pretty big deal. And I think if that were the case, if you envision a world of, let's say, 100 million cars a year, and Tesla's making 20 million cars, and the other 80 million are not Tesla vehicles, but Tesla's licensing FSD to them. I'm just making up numbers, right? But let's say if they got $15,000 a unit times 80 million cars, $1.2 trillion in revenue. Suppose it's only half of that. Still $600 billion in revenue. Tesla's revenue this year is going to be like 100 billion. And it's all profit. That's basically all profit. So, the margin on that is, I don't know, 90, 95%. The lithium refinery and cathode facility are progressing well. The lithium refinery will help make sure that Tesla gets the lithium they need and probably get the lithium in the quality that they need. The cathode facility is going to produce cathode materials that go into Tesla's 4680 cells, and it's going to make those cells more efficient, lower cost, higher energy density. Better. Continue to focus on making as many cars as we can while maintaining healthy financials. AI development is obviously entering a new era. Excited about what's to come. Megapack supercharging are all started to become a meaningful contributor to overall profitability this quarter. Thank the employees. Okay. So Zach's opening remarks. Check here on the. John Bay says he's leaning towards Ford. Yeah, I agree with that. There's no Tesla phone. Yeah, Tesla phone. No, it's gonna be a Twitter phone. It's gonna be an X phone. SpaceX phone. I don't know. Um, Zach notes period of economic uncertainty, rising interest rates, volatility in consumer confidence, and regulatory change. And the Tesla team continue to grow through all that. This is one of the things that really stands out about Tesla is that when there's economic hardship in the country or the world, Tesla seems to grow regardless of that hardship. So whatever the problem is thrown at Tesla in a given quarter, Tesla seems to excel anyway. Single most important priority is invest heavily in the core technologies that will drive the long-term value of the business. This includes AI-related technologies like Optimus and Dojo, as well as new projects like Cybertruck, Semi, next generation platform, and that is evidenced by the continued growth in our R&D spend. So Tesla's spending more in R&D, and that improves the future for the company. Continuing investments in capacity expansion, not only in factories, but in supercharging network. Work toward our goals. Continue with meaningful capital expenditures to lay the foundation for the future. Work toward our goals of maximizing volumes on both our vehicle and energy business, and most importantly, doing so in a way that generates the capital continued pace of R&D and capital investments. They're working on a strong focus on per unit cost of goods sold reductions in each of our key businesses, capital improvements, storage volumes are typically volatile sequentially based on the types of projects and their specific revenue recognition milestones. This is one of those things when I talked about I got my energy revenue prediction wrong. That's because there's the word he uses, specific revenue recognition milestones. They do a project with some company, let's say it's a utility, and they're going to install 100 megapacks. I'm making up numbers. It may be that the utility contract says you're going to recognize revenue over this period of time and not right away. So I don't know how that works out, but it appears that that's an issue, and that may explain the delay in energy revenue not following storage deployed. Wanted to reiterate the comments on Q3 volumes driven by planned downtimes for factory upgrades, carry some amount of factory idle cost, working to minimize as much as possible. Okay. So what's the status of 4680 cells? This was a big one. If you got to this point, pay attention, because this is one of the ones that gets big. This is Drew. It says unknown speaker, but I'm confident this was Drew Baglino. I am the president of the Baglino. I'm the unelected president of the Baglino fan club. Jordan Gieske of Limiting Factors with me on this. So 4680 cell production increased 80% Q2 over Q1. 80% is a big jump. That means you produced 100 units last quarter, you produced 180 units this quarter. That's big. Team surpassed 10 million production cells produced. I think there's about 900 cells. I think it's 828 cells in a Model Y. So 10 million cells is a lot of Model Ys. Well, let me think about that. A million cells would be about 1,000 cars. So that's about 10,000 cars. And the Cybertruck will probably have larger battery packs, so it'll be harder. Focus on yield reduced our scrap bill by 40% quarter over quarter. That resulted in a 25% reduction in cell cost of goods sold. So if you're reducing scrap by 40%, my guess is that the yield increased dramatically, and that reduced the amount of waste. You have to throw away a cell or recycle a cell. That's saving you some money and doing better. Resulted in a 25% reduction in cell cost of goods sold. And this is big. Here in Texas, we're preparing to launch the Cybertruck cell, which is 10% higher energy density than current production. So Cybertruck's going to get a higher energy density battery. We've seen reports that the early 4680 did not have a high energy density. As we scale cyber cell production to the end of the year and early next, we should be in a comfortable place on cost per cell. They can drive the cost of the cells down. And just another thing, there's this Inflation Reduction Act tax credit. With the Panasonic cells made in Nevada, Tesla splits the tax credit 50-50 with Panasonic. With the 4680 cells in Texas, Tesla's going to get all that tax credit. About $45 off per kilowatt hour. If they're producing batteries for $100 a kilowatt hour, they're getting $45 off. It's really $55 a kilowatt hour. That is a huge cost advantage for Tesla. Against our battery energy density targets, CyberCell is at our expectations on a like-for-like electrochemistry basis. We are yet to integrate silicon or in-house cathode production. So these things are going to improve those numbers. When they do that, that will bring significant further energy density and cost improvements, but that's a topic for another day. And just to be clear, I've been calling for a second battery day. We had a battery day a few years ago now. There's constant questions about 4680. I think I have questions about what's the future of lithium iron phosphate. Is Tesla going to build iron cathode based cell production in the United States? Is someone else going to build lithium iron phosphate cell production in the United States? What's happening with adding manganese to the iron-based cathodes? There's a lot of questions that I would love answered there, and we don't typically get the answers we need in something like this. So I would love to see a new battery day. Most of what we focused on battery day was a Tesla-engineered 4680 production system and the improvements we strove to achieve on equipment, factory density, capital cost, and utility cost, all of which we are realizing in our Texas scale up to date. They're making progress. All right, next question. About Tesla energy products and about applying AI to AutoBidder. I think this might be Drew again. Can't comment on future product roadmap. Quick Energy Q2 update. Megapack please shows strong demand globally. Lathrop ramping. Megapack margins are reasonably placed in line with our target market, vehicle target margins. Second final assembly line in Lathrop is progressing on schedule, eventually doubling Lathrop capacity ahead of our full factory ramp. Several exciting large projects in construction are nearing completion. On the AutoBidder question, we continue to grow AutoBidder contracts. Okay. They do have software margins, but okay, this is an important detail because I hear this a lot. AutoBidder does have software margins and is an enabler for hardware sales, but it's a relatively small contributor to revenues. Yes, you can make some money from AutoBidder. It's not as big as people think. That's not the trillion-dollar business that people want to believe it's going to be. Mark Plot says CyberCell may be high nickel. I think that's very likely. All right, let's keep going. I was looking at the chat to see if there's anything there, but I don't see anything. These large capital projects have lifetimes of 20 years of recurring revenues on an annualized basis relative to upfront capex. This is an interesting detail here. I'm not sure how to read this. These large capital projects have lifetimes of 20 years of recurring revenues on an annualized basis relative to upfront capex is small. I'm not sure how to take that. Does that mean you sell it for $2 million, but you only recognize the revenue, $1 million a year for 20 years? Or is there something else going on? I think it's the maintenance. It's kind of curious to hear when they get reimbursed for a Megapack when they deliver a Megapack. Launching Charge on Solar. They've got their own Tesla electricity utility in Texas, and they're working on that, but the regulatory, this is a comment down here for people who are excited about Tesla insurance and Tesla energy. So unfortunately, it's somewhat similar to Tesla insurance. Bringing Tesla electric and VPP, virtual power plant capabilities to our customers requires working through a fractured regulatory environment on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction basis. In the long run, the value of residential energy software and hardware will be driven by the level of market access that utilities, market operators, and regulators permit. So where they can do it, they can make it work well, but there's a lot of resistance from the grid from the grid operators and the utilities. Next question, quantify the benefits to cost of goods sold per unit from the IRA battery manufacturing incentives, and secondly, battery raw material declines year to date. Okay, so Zach Kirkhorn said, for IRA manufacturing incentives, we provided previous guidance. We expect these to be for the course of the year in the range of 150 to 200 million per quarter. We're staying within that boundary as we guided previously. As I mentioned before, this includes a 50-50 sharing credit of qualified cells from our long-term battery partner, Panasonic. This will not, that 50-50 sharing of credits will not apply to 4680. So as 4680 grows, Tesla gets more tax credits. Seeing improvements in commodities, which is buying battery materials and other materials for their production. Doing well on lithium. They had good contracts beforehand. As you look at cost of goods sold per unit sequentially from Q1 to Q2, there's two important things to keep in mind. S and X mix in for deliveries increased quite a bit from Q1 to Q2. I don't know. I didn't really understand that. I still don't understand that. If somebody understands it, say something in the chat. Continue to work on reducing our Austin and Berlin costs, which we did quite a bit of that from Q1 to Q2. These factories are still slightly above model production costs elsewhere. So as Austin and Berlin ramp, they're going to bring their cost of goods sold down, and I think over the long haul, they will be significantly less expensive than Fremont and maybe less expensive than even Shanghai. Now, this is Karan, who is the works on supply chain, hedged in lithium position, seeing reduction in pricing across the board. Okay, I'm not that worried about that. Have you considered allowing FSD transferability as a lever? So I want to talk about this really quick. We're excited to announce that for Q3, one-time transfer, one-time amnesty. A one-time thing. Okay, so now I own a Tesla Model 3 2018 long range that my youngest child drives, and I'm thinking about upgrading to a 2023 Model 3 standard range, which the long range is down to about 288 miles of range, down from the original 310. The standard range has about 272 miles of range, but it has a lithium iron phosphate battery pack, which means number one, the battery pack lasts longer, and number two, you can charge to 100%. So you actually may have more usable range in a 280 in a standard range than you would have in this existing long range 3. Plus, my long range 3 has, my 2018 Model 3 has 108,000 miles on it. A lot of newer equipment, better manufacturing in the current Model 3. So I may be, in the next week or two, I may decide to go ahead and buy one. I am thinking of like trying to see if we got hardware 4 on Model 3s. I'm not worried about Project Highland. When will you give more information about Cybertruck orders? Elon says demand is so far off the hook you can't even see the hook. So first order approximations, there's like 10,000 unique parts. It'll go fastest, the least lucky. He didn't really give an answer to this question. I think we'll be making them in high volume next year, and we'll be delivering the car this year. So he went back off. He previously said they would be delivering in Q3, and now looks like they're expecting Q4. Critics of gigacasting contended the process makes vehicles harder and more costly to repair, essentially pushing costs on the consumers. And Elon says that must be why everyone's copying us. Lars says, Lars, who's the engineer behind Cybertruck and the head of vehicle engineering, he just did a video about crash worthiness. Simply not true. There's a misconception that traditional bodies are easy to repair, but they are made of multiple materials and multiple joining methods. Spot wheels and rivets have to be drilled out. Panels and structural adhesive fizzles out. Right adhesive has to be removed. Stamping is cut. So putting that together means time and money. Use an example of replacing a rear cast rail on a Model Y to do that versus like what replaced it with Model 3. It's 10 times cheaper, 3 times faster to do it with the cast rail. My design team works with our collision repair team since we're closed loop on this with insurance. This is another advantage that Tesla has that people don't see. They talk about it, but people don't get it. Because Tesla has their own insurance, they do some of their own collision repair. They're able to see what changes they can make to reduce, to improve the repair experience for people who do get in crashes. We design parts that make it easier and faster to repair. Incentive to do that because we have our own insurance and our own body shops. Continue to do this in collision repair. We continue to become cheaper and faster over time. Make this available to all body shops through our Tesla-approved body shop training. Okay. We are actually able to change the details of the casting with inserts. Do that all the time. Cast is basically a cast rear body. It's lighter, cheaper, better noise, vibration, and harshness, much easier to manufacture. It's better in every way. And that's why so many other car companies are copying us, because they don't know this well. They put out a lot of press releases about it. Okay. How many Optimus bots have been made? Some said that they had 100 bots. When will they start being able to perform useful tasks? Elon says 10 million as a joke. He says, yeah, I think we're around 5 or 6 bots. 10, I guess, which ones are which and how many are working in what phase, but it's sort of like there's more every month. There are actually no suppliers that can produce the actuators. There's no off-the-shelf actuators that work. Same inference hardware is in the car. Just trying to get through to get to the good stuff here. But in terms of when they'll be able to do some useful things, like we'll first be trying it on our own factories, just proving out its utility. But I think we'll be able to have it do something useful in our factories sometime next year. Now, if you're committed to Tesla's, getting Optimus going and doing a lot of stuff, then you interpret that as aha. And yeah, I'm gonna go with 2025. I really think they should make a lot of them and sell them to us, but what do I know? He came up with this is kind of an interesting bit here that in the US, there are 2 million amputees. He was talking to the Neuralink team. By combining a Neuralink implant and a robotic arm or a leg for somebody who has their arms, we can give somebody, basically, they think they can help somebody who's got an amputation to restore a limb with the Neuralink and a robotic arm, that the robotic arms from Optimus will be better. So that's something that they're thinking about. Help millions of people around the world. Robot arm that's as good, maybe long-term better than a biological one. So how has the ordering take trended relative to production levels during Q2? Demand has roughly tracked production. Unlike other car makers, we have real-time demand and real-time production. Because Tesla sells through its own stores and through its own website rather than selling through dealers, Tesla gets better information on demand. So, all right, let me skip ahead here. Talking about the macroeconomy, which again, that's a short-term thing I'm not too worried about. Elon recommends against margin loans. Recommend margin loans in times that are turbulent. I see a path to 10x, but I call it a 5x increase in the value of the company, maybe a 10x. So 10x from where we are. Let's be clear here. Elon just predicted a 10x in the value of the stock. We're currently trading at the time we were trading around $280 a share, $290 a share. He's calling $3,000 a share. All right. Okay. I don't. Just looking through. I think I'm going to wrap up here. So. Oh, we had the analysts. All right. I need to take a short break, so please stay with me. I'm sorry I got to take a short break. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. I have an old man's bladder and he won't take it. He won't take it back. Uh, I apologize for that short break. No, I wasn't dropping off friends at a pool. Um, do I invest in TSLY at all? I think that's one of those funds where you like invest and they borrow a little bit to buy a higher, or TSLL is one of them where you get like 1.25 shares of Tesla or something like that. I don't do that. I just buy stock. We're going to see Cybertrucks on the road soon. I think we're going to see Cybertrucks on the road. Uh, we probably won't see very many on the road until 2023. Philip Maisie, Warren, will you be priming the pump to meet a Japanese woman online before arriving there? No, I did start playing with dating apps. I don't expect to meet women with dating apps, but I did start playing with dating apps. Are you going to sponsor your new wife to the USA? No, no, the idea is to live in Japan. Japanese women don't necessarily want to come to America. Um, okay. All right, let me get back to this. So we're at the analyst questions now, and I didn't want to ditch this. So question about AI and Dojo. What's the process of refining the product? Is it more machines? Give us a sense of when the payout starts to go. Um, so he's asking about Dojo expenditure. We're not going to be open loop on our Dojo expenditure, but I think we'll be spending north of $1 billion over the next year or through the end of next year. It's well over $1 billion in Dojo. Truly staggering amount of video data to train on. So basically, Tesla is saying we're spending over $1 billion building a supercomputer. They're spending over $1 billion building a custom supercomputer. Now, I have said in a previous video that I think Dojo itself will become a $1 trillion business for Tesla, a $1 trillion market cap business with, $100 billion a year in revenue from selling AI trainings as a service down the road. So, in order to copy us, you need to spend billions of dollars on training compute. But the idea that there's somebody else out there who's going to solve FSD, if they come up with some new algorithms or some other technology to solve the self-driving problem, okay. But the best that anyone understands about how you got to solve self-driving is you need a lot of data and you need a lot of computing power. So you need billions of miles of driving data, which Tesla has because they got all the cars on the road, and you need billions of dollars of supercomputers. And Tesla has that. And nobody else is investing in this way. So you need the data, you need the training computers. And of course, Tesla has their own custom inference computer inside the car that processes the training and is efficient. See a lot of AI companies doing, I think it's large language models. They're so great. Why can't they make a self-driving car? Because it's harder. Great companies out there, but the staggering amount of data we got to process just has to be processed somehow. And custom silicon is the best way to do that. So that's what Dojo is designed to do. It's not optimized for large language models. It's optimized for video training. With the video training, you have a much higher ratio of compute to memory bandwidth, where language models tend to be memory bandwidth choked. So that's what I mean. We'll take the NVIDIA hardware as fast as NVIDIA not NVIDIA, NVIDIA. We'll take their hardware as fast as they'll deliver it to us. Tremendous respect for Jensen, who's the CEO in NVIDIA. They've done an incredible job. I don't know if they could deliver enough GPUs. We might not need Dojo, but they can't, so they got so many customers. So this is the point that Tesla is investing very heavily to build out their own supercomputer because they cannot get enough computing power from NVIDIA or anybody else. We're not trying to just get as good as human. We want to get 10 times better than humans, maybe 100 times better than human. Why? On the order of 1 million automotive deaths per year worldwide. And then if you had permanent injuries, it's closer to 10 million a year. So if you're twice as good as human, 10 times better would still mean 100,000 deaths and 1 million severe permanent injuries. But we'd rather be 100 times better. We want to achieve as perfect safety as possible. And so that we need Dojo just for There's other applications for Dojo, but we just desperately need it for video training. So Zach clarifies here, the numbers that Elon mentioned are between R&D spend and capital spend. And this is moving quickly, and so we provide a 3-year outlook on our capital expense. So the Dojo expenditure is within the capital expense. Elon says the fundamental rate limiter on full self-driving is training, but if we had more training compute, we would get it done faster, so that's it. Okay. And it's difficult to predict how quickly we can execute on it. There's no promise that Dojo is going to be working by the end of next year and really delivering what they need, but you know that they can't predict that, but that's what they're shooting for. Okay. Macro uncertainty. To what extent are you willing to sacrifice on pricing to keep that 50% CAGR volume intact? I'm just not going to address that because I just think it's boring. Elon talking about the how FSD changes everything. Think of every car we sell has full autonomy capability, something in the future maybe worth 5 times as much as it is today. This is the thing, that if you sell as many cars as you can, even if you like lose money on them, if 2 years later you're going to make $15,000 a car from people, you know, buying them, and you've sold 10 million cars, and that's, you know, $150 billion in added revenue. Yeah, $150 billion in added revenue. That's why that matters, and it's all profit. So it does make sense to sacrifice margins in favor of making more vehicles, because in the not too distant future they'll have a dramatic value increase. And he's talked about that many times before. All right, Deutsche Bank. Your latest timing to essentially release a non-beta version or eyes-off version that would trigger much higher take rates, and would Tesla benefit from lowering the price of FSD? People have made fun of me, quite fairly made fun of me. I think it's at some point in here he said he's the boy who cried FSD. Reason I'm optimistic is is the rapid growth. He described why he gets this wrong. He said he's the boy who cried FSD. A friend of mine saw this or heard him say this and said, Warren, you said that in the Twitter space. So there's a theory that Elon was listening to me in a Twitter space. Friend, she thought that Elon must have heard me in the Twitter space. I don't know. Sell the cars, break even, and make money selling recharges. Always pick a home with a restroom on the ground level. Yeah. All right, let me get back to this here. That's not to say we're approved by regulators. U.S., we got to focus on one market first. Oh, that would be in the U.S. We've got to focus on one market first. We'll be better than human by the end of this year. I think we'll be better than human by the end of this year. Been wrong in the past. I may be wrong this time. And the price of FSD is actually very low. It's not high. The value of a car increases dramatically if it's actually autonomous. $15,000 is a low price, not a high price. We sort of offer as a sort of monthly subscription, although most people don't know that. I'd recommend trying it as a monthly subscription. You don't have to go with the $15,000 thing. But yeah, obviously, if the car's worth several times its original price, $15,000 is a low price for FSD. Okay. Question about XAI, Elon's new company. Is this going to overlap or compete with Tesla, or does it enhance the value of Tesla? Elon says it'll enhance that. I think this is all kind of speculative at this point. Just my quick comment on XAI is Tesla is doing real world AI to understand video data coming in through cameras, being able to navigate through the real world. In the case of Optimus, being able to manipulate objects in the real world. I don't think XAI is working on that kind of problem. XAI is working on like understanding fundamental physics, understanding fundamental math. I'm sure they're going to do more than that, but I don't think that's an issue. But if XAI has access to, does a really good job on language, then what Tesla benefits from XAI is training the cars and the bots to understand human commands and to communicate back to humans. And he created XAI because it's a way of drawing people in to work for him who might not have been willing to work for Tesla, but they are willing to work for a startup like X.AI. So Um, Again, this is a short-term question about sales. Um, as you're building out Dojo and implementing what's going to be a highly complex set of software, can you speak to the maturity of the operating system and how much outsourced software using in that system? Elon says this is a custom software stack. It's designed such that you can run at a high level PyTorch and JAX. PyTorch is a very common AI language. I'm not sure about JAX. So the software stack is a combination of open source software, and then it tells the software to bear silicon, which is the case for the inference computer for the car. That was a pretty technical and short explanation. I don't think I understood it. Can you speak to how you're managing geopolitical risks? Elon says, period of unusual geopolitical risks. The best we can do is have factories in many parts of the world, so if things get difficult in one part of the world, we can still keep going in the rest of the world. So now that was, what did he say? Did he say have factories in many parts of the world? Now you could interpret that as saying we are doing India, we are doing Japan. I don't know. They're doing Mexico. Mexico's an expansion, right? That's a new place. So we'll see. Mark Delaney from Goldman Sachs. Can you give an update on when you think automotive COGS per vehicle could be under the historical $36,000 per vehicle level, and what are the... So Zach said, very difficult to forecast, series of costs we manage. It's hard to say. Human economics improve as volumes grow. Equipment depreciation comes into play. So they're back and forth. This is like a back and forth among the team about different issues. All right. So then we made tremendous improvements in costs on all fronts. Down to pre so they're making improvement on costs. We look at our progress from Q1 to Q2 on cost. The way we look at that internally, normalized for the impacts of mix shift with Austin and Berlin being a higher percentage of mix, normalized for X and X being a high percentage of our mix. Great work by the Tesla team. That mix. Game of pennies. Maybe you could put a finer point on the downtime impact that you both spoke about. That Kirkhorn says we don't know exactly the number of cars impacted, because we kind of the way we go into a downtime window is for upgrades. We set aside a period of time, and then the team is challenged to go as quickly as possible so we can get the factories up and running again and minimize that. It's not profound reduction. Hopefully it's quite small. So for the Highland fans, Dak is saying hopefully it's a small reduction and it's a small amount of downtime. Does that sound like a total revamp and a refresh? I mean, when they refreshed Model S and X, they stopped producing them for months. They're not stopping producing 3 and Y for months. And Elon says, we're asking for a level of precision that's not possible to answer, so let's move on. And that's all the time we have for today. So let me go into the chat here. I'm going to close that. Oops. Go here. All right, let's look at the chat. Skimning Forest says, how is a Tesla electric truck better than a Ford electric truck? Well, we don't have the details on Cybertruck yet. What we know is that people aren't buying the Ford F-150 Lightning. It's not getting a lot of demand. Rivian is doing okay, but not doing that great. We expect that Tesla's Cybertruck will be less expensive, more profitable for Tesla. Won't have to. There's no paint job. There's no paint shop needed. The stainless steel won't. I'm driving a Dodge Ram 1500 right now because my car's in the shop getting a collision repair, and things got all kinds of scratches on it. Cybertruck won't get scratched. And then the lower costs. Because they're more efficient, it's a lower cost to operate. Cybertruck will float like I'm not expecting a lot of floating. That's one I'm not so sure I buy Elon on there. Jim Whitehead says there's a nice still photo of Cybertruck splashing through mud off-road and testing. Can you imagine the envy when it ships from the redneck crowd when the one? Yeah, my fantasy was that I was going to pick up my Cybertruck and I was going to drive it to my local country bar and show it off, and I'd go home with a girl and all the guys would want one. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen because I'm going to be in Japan. I do plan to fly back from Japan when my Cybertruck is ready. I have an early order for Cybertruck. I do plan to fly back from Japan, pick up Cybertruck, drive it for a week, and so on. 472 Water says, did you have a crash? Yeah, I was driving. It's a very low velocity collision. I was driving. A guy made a left turn. Older gentleman just made a bad decision, turned and hit my left front wheel. It was surprising, and I slowed down. I steered away from it. I hadn't engaged FSD beta yet. So, because I was coming out of a parking lot, couldn't engage it there. Was approaching a traffic light, couldn't engage it there, and then it just happened. So yeah, I'm driving a real pickup, sure. I did think it was a good. What happened was I went to the rental place after I dropped the car off, and insurance is paying for the rental. They said we don't have the car you ordered. Would you take this pickup truck? And it's like, well, probably a good idea to get the experience of driving a pickup truck before I get a Cybertruck. Acoustonaut, it was great to hear the leadership team laughing during questions. Top talent, they still love working together. This feels really underrated to me. Yeah, it was a really good sign from me that they were so relaxed and enjoying, the joking around about what was going on rather than like stressing out about it. Mark Plot says you can haul 12 bikini girls in a Cybertruck. I just need one. One is enough. And I'd rather have her inside. Gimning says Warren plans to get married, get divorced, and have his ex-wife clean him out of his Tesla stock. The second ex-wife? When will FSD be licensed roughly? Are you negotiating with Ford? A lot of people think it's Ford. We don't know. Let me just see here. What did I miss? Probably going to wrap up soon. Skimming Forlsket says, I think they should make body panels out of plastic. Why? Stainless steel's great. Why add weight and manufacturing complexity by putting panels? I don't know why you would want that. All right. Okay, so what does Tesla mean when they say Dojo is in production? Oh, so Dojo is a hardware solution to create AI training supercomputers. It's a chip. It's a card that holds a bunch of chips. I think they call it not a slide. Call it a card that holds a bunch of chips. There's two of those. It goes in a rack. All kinds of other things that have to come together. And they've gone from like experimenting with prototypes of Dojo to actually starting to produce Dojo in volume. 472 Water, how are you so smart? School or upbringing? I'm going to say, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I'm going to say both. I think my parents were both very smart, and I did go to Rice University on a National Merit Scholarship and Stanford University Business Graduate School of Business. I got paid to go to Stanford. I tested well. I think my brain works pretty well. I think primarily, I'm open-minded. I get very stubborn in my beliefs, like Project Highland, but I'm also I'm looking for somebody to tell me why I'm wrong and persuade me. Can I opine on the FSD early licensing talks? I don't want to get too excited about that until something happens. Monthly budget living in Japan. In the short term, I'm going to be paying $1,200 a month for an Airbnb. And after about 3 months, hopefully I'll get a visa, and then I'll be paying about $800 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And then I don't expect to own a car in Japan unless I'm foolish and buy the Cybertruck and ship it to Japan. Food is cheaper. Taxis are cheaper. Transportation is cheaper in general. But I haven't really worried about the budget yet. I have a lot of money, and I have a decent income, and whatever I have will go farther in Japan than it'll go here. I'm going to be in Nagoya, Japan, by the way. Tokyo is an expensive place to rent. Everywhere else in Japan, rents are cheap. So, and I'll like my Airbnb is going to be like a 5-minute walk from a co-working space I'm going to be working at, which is just south of Nagoya's main station. So great location. Self-taught investor. Did law school help with investing? I think law school helps with investing a little bit. Definitely more of a self-taught investor. I started managing family investments 30 years ago, family investments of my own. I started off just mutual funds, shifted to exchange traded funds, started buying a few stocks here and there, started getting more into stocks. It was 2013 was a big wake up call. I saw Amazon. I developed conviction and I bought like $10,000 worth of Amazon stock. And it was the biggest mistake I made because the stock 13x and I hadn't bought enough. So when I saw Tesla, I went very heavy into Tesla and I'm now basically all in Tesla. Tile, thank you, John Bay. Tile is the term, not for tile isn't the term for the Dojo chips. It's the term for the thing that holds the chips. Yeah, I mean, like today, I keep up by I watch things like the All In podcast. I do watch some junk on YouTube. I don't watch any television anymore. I used to read The Economist. I think The Economist is kind of like all the mainstream media is kind of fallen apart. So I participate in Twitter Spaces. I read what's going on Twitter. I watch YouTube videos. I listen to sensible voices. I don't read as much as I used to. I should probably read. I mean, I read on the internet. I don't read books as much as I used to. I used to read a lot of magazines. I don't read those anymore. John Bay says, I do hope version 12 of FSD before the end of the year. They've said that. Jeff Harrison says Nagoya is relatively cheap. Pretty much everything in Japan outside of Tokyo is relatively cheap. 472 Water says, why does Dular says College Town. Every Japanese city has major universities, and Nagoya has Nagoya University. There's Aichi University. There's a whole bunch of universities in Nagoya. I don't know if I would call it a college town. Nagoya is essentially the home of Toyota. Toyota created its own city just east of Nagoya. I think it used to be part of Nagoya, or maybe they grew together. So there's a lot of auto manufacturing. The reason I'm going to Nagoya is because I'm going to be working with. I'm going to try to network with. Sorry, step back. My first week in Japan, I'm going to a college or university automotive racing competition. Each university, or not every university, but a lot of universities have teams that build race cars. Not like high-end Formula One race cars. They hack together some kind of car, and then they bring them out to this event and they race them. I don't think they race them all together on the track at the same time. I think they put them through different tests, and something like 2/3 of the teams are building internal combustion engine vehicles, but a third are building EVs. Nagoya University, as best I can tell, is the leading electric vehicle team. So I'm going to network with them, learn more about what they're doing, and maybe potentially hire students to help me build prototypes of my pod car. And so that's why I chose. I was originally going to go to Fukuoka, Japan, which is a city I was more familiar with, but Fukuoka doesn't have a university with an electric vehicle team. Nagoya has a few. Nagoya University, Toyohashi University of Technology is an hour away. There's a couple other teams nearby. Shizuoka University is another hour away, whatever. Abu says, forgive me on not so smart questions. Is the Dojo computer going to be installed in Tesla cars, or is it going to be a centralized computer? Dojo is a centralized supercomputer cluster. The car has a chip that's known as an inference chip. The supercomputer trains the inference chip in the car how to respond depending on what circumstances the car encounters. That's the best I can describe it. Would I like to see Elon step back away from earnings calls to show his confidence in the other leaders? It's not that I want him to show confidence. I want to hear more of what Zach and Drew and Lars have to say. I think Elon tends to talk too much and doesn't give them the chance to talk. And a lot of what Elon says is stuff we've already heard. Sometimes he says something new, but a lot of what he says is stuff we've already heard. So I would rather have them on the calls more, and maybe Elon takes a break every other call. But I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about it. Last shareholder meeting, Elon said Tesla's been designing 2 new products that combined will sell in excess of 5 million units combined. That's the next generation vehicle platform. It is probably a small SUV. First of all, I think it's more than 2 vehicles, but I think there's probably going to be an SUV version, and maybe there's going to be like a sedan or some sort of compact version. And my guess would be that there'll be different versions in China and Europe, but I'm not sure. 472 Water. Did Tasha Keeney say robo-taxis within 1 year? He might have. I love Tasha. She might be right. She might be wrong. I don't want to get over optimistic. I think there's a decent chance we'll see a assuming that Tesla gets to version 12 this year and this foundational model of FSD this year, then, because we're in July now, will they be to the point where they could have a robo-taxi trial in a city? Maybe. I don't think they're going to push that hard for that. I think by the end of next year. So not a year, but by the end of next year. Has Elon ever addressed end of life on Tesla software? Would an older Tesla ever become unupdatable in the same way iPhones end up becoming useless? The older Model S's and Model X's already are unupdatable. They can't update to FSD beta or the newest hardware. Suppose a rich guy paid you $100,000 a year to claim the Earth was flat. Would you? Many would. Sure. Why wouldn't I take $100,000 a year to say the Earth is flat? Do I have to believe it, or can I just say it? Did your phone stop working when the new iPhone was released? Okay. Tom says, so Dojo will create fully functional FSD, right? I don't think it's quite that simple. I think what I would say is that Dojo is part of an effort to improve AI training of video data that's coming in from all the cars. And by radically increasing the amount of computing power, whether it was if they had enough NVIDIA computers, they might not need Dojo. They don't have enough NVIDIA computers. They need a much higher volume of computing power than they can get from NVIDIA. So I do think that Dojo will ultimately be better than the NVIDIA solution, but more importantly, it's just generating a lot more computing power to do the things they need to do. You pronounce it a Dasha? What? Okay. Tasha's hot. Tasha's beyond hot. I think we can all agree Tasha's hot. Unfortunately, I think Tasha's married. Tasha has great data, but she seems unsure of herself. Times it's a lack of confidence. I have not noticed her lack of confidence. I've always thought she seemed confident. Tesla OS is important. Larry says, yeah. Herbert did a video. I'm in a video with Herbert, where a bunch of us influencers offered our opinions on things, and you can watch that if you want. I think Larry Goldberg is really, really good. I think Bradford Ferguson is really, really good in offering their thoughts on what's going on with Tesla, what we learned. Express Insurance Professionals, when do we stay above $300? I don't worry about the short-term share price. How far behind Tesla and other EV makers in FSD? Other EV makers aren't doing FSD. They're not. The only potential competition is Waymo and Cruise, and neither of them makes EVs. Maybe there's Mobileye, which doesn't make EVs either. Maybe there's a company in China, and maybe one of them does make EVs. I don't know. My thoughts on next Tesla stock split. I don't care about stock splits. You think it's Tasha, not Tasha? I don't know. All right. Okay. Anyway, what will Fed hikes do to demand? If the Fed increases interest rates, that will hurt demand. That's standard. Hai Chung says, should I trade my 2018 Model 3 with FSD and transfer to 2023 Model Y or Model 3? I think it's probably a good decision to trade a 2018 in for a 2023. I have a 2018 Model 3 with 108,000 miles, and it seems like a no-brainer to me to do that. So I'm probably going to do that this week or next week. Whether Model Y or Model 3 depends on what you want. In my case, we're going to do a standard range Model 3 to minimize the cost. It's for my kid who's happy driving a Model 3, doesn't need anything else. The most efficient. The Model 3 is the most efficient vehicle. So for a robo-taxi future, the Model 3 is probably the best choice for profitability. And the standard range Model 3 has lithium iron phosphate cells, so the battery pack will last longer. Any comment on Xpeng or Neo? I haven't been following Xpeng at all. I haven't followed Neo recently. I don't like their battery swap model, but I don't know what's happened with them recently. Yeah, t-shirts at elonbits.com. Thank you, Mark Plott. Stainless steel water bottle at elonbits.com. All right, we've been going for, wow, we're getting close to 2 hours. So I'm going to wrap up here. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank my supporters on the Locals platform, Patreon, YouTube channel members, and Twitter subscribers. Please consider supporting me on one of those platforms or any of those platforms or all of those platforms. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Thank you again to the moderators. Check out my other videos. And thanks everybody so much for watching. Tesla to the moon. This is the moon up here.